Story 1. I'm not sure if this counts as malicious compliance, but I read a similar story here and wanted to share my own. My father passed away in 2015, but we were still receiving non-stop credit card offers for him. I decided to call the company and ask them to stop sending my father mail. I spoke with a woman on the phone, explained that my father was deceased, and requested his name be removed from their mailing list. She kept insisting that she needed to speak with the person the mail was being sent to or receive his death certificate. I repeatedly told her he was deceased and that he was receiving offers, had no credit card with this company, and I was under no obligation to send his death certificate to stop junk mail. This conversation went in circles. Finally, I said, "Fine. I'd like to open this credit card under his name, then." She replied, "But you just said he was deceased." I simply responded, "Yes." She was silent for a few seconds before transferring me to the appropriate department for assistance. Story 2. My father has been a lawyer here in British Columbia, Canada, for more than 30 years. When he was starting out in his 30s, he was working hard to support a stay-at-home wife and me, his young son. As he was very much a personality with little patience, he frequently exceeded the speed limit on highways and often received speeding tickets. However, he contested every single one in court and had each one overturned. The reason was quite simple. At the time, Canada was in the process of switching over from imperial miles per hour to metric kilometers per hour, and all of the road signs had to be replaced. The British Columbia Legal Code specified that a road sign was legally composed of 2 signs on a pole. Apparently, at some point, someone in charge of replacing all the signs with the new metric ones decided they could save a considerable amount of money by printing all the information on 1 sign instead of 2. However, this no longer complied with the specifics of the legal code, so my father would return to the exact sign where he was ticketed, take a picture of it, and then bring the picture to court along with a copy of the laws in question. His defense was straightforward. He would allow the arresting officer to take the stand and give testimony regarding the ticket, then show the officer the picture he took and ask them to identify whether that was the sign he had sped past. They always agreed that it was indeed the same sign. He thanked them and dismissed them with no further questions. He would then present the picture to the judge along with the bookmarked page of the British Columbia Highway Act and explain the exact wording of the law. This was followed by his factual argument that since there was only a single sign posted, it did not constitute a legal road sign as defined in the Highway Act. As I mentioned before, every single ticket was dismissed, and all my father lost was half an hour of his time. This strategy worked for almost a decade, with him overturning thousands of dollars worth of speeding tickets until the law was changed. He still exceeds the speed limit, by the way. Story 3. Disclaimer: this is not my story, but a coworker's. We worked at a fast food chain together that stayed open 24 hours. If you were unlucky enough to get an overnight shift, you would start at 11 p.m. and finish at 8 a.m. If you were unfortunate enough to get the overnight shifts, you were almost guaranteed to work one before your holiday, meaning you technically worked 8 hours on your first day off. My friend had requested their holiday in advance and stated on the request that they had a plane flight that very day, so they could not work an overnight shift the night before. The scheduling manager didn't care and scheduled them for an overnight shift anyway. My friend was upset, asked them again to change it, and they refused. My friend then clarified that their holiday began on that day, to which the manager agreed. My friend then showed up for the overnight shift, completed 1 hour, and clocked off at exactly midnight. When asked why they were walking off their shift, they informed the manager that today was officially their holiday, so they didn't have to work. They left the store and went on vacation as planned. Surprisingly, the managers didn't argue with them about it. Though they weren't pleased, they considered issuing a warning, but had to settle with a stern, "Please tell us next time, and we'll sort out the problem" when my friend returned. I am pleased to say they are now a little more cautious about giving people an overnight shift before their holiday time. Story 4. In high school, my standard outfit included a backward flat-brim baseball cap. One teacher, in the middle of class, called me out. "Oh, you need to take off your hat. It's distracting." What about the 13 other guys in this class with a similar hat? Well, it's distracting when a girl wears a baseball cap. I was furious. Baseball caps on girls are distracting. Fine, I won't wear one. The next class period, I wore a 3-foot-tall, red and yellow jester hat that featured bells, so that if I moved my head at all, 16 bells would shake. At the end of an hour and a half of bells, the teacher pulled me aside to ask that I go back to my baseball cap. Apparently, it was no longer distracting. Story 5. Do you know that person at work whom everyone dislikes? The rude, obnoxious, lazy one that no one quite understands how they still have a job. Well, mine's name was Bob. For months, Bob partnered himself up with me with a lovely 9-titan split of the work. Anytime I called him out on it, he became more and more obnoxious, and if it was actually possible, did less and less work. On top of all his other charming traits, Bob is absolutely addicted to his phone. This is bad enough in a regular setting. Where we work, it's actually very, very dangerous not to be paying attention to what's going on around you. I've mentioned this to Bob repeatedly to no avail, even after he was nearly hit by a forklift and almost had his head struck by a robot. Our manager at the time said, "If you're foolish enough to get hurt because you wouldn't put your phone down, no one's going to miss you," and ignored the behavior. My last attempt at getting this guy to work and be safe was met with him snapping, "Leave me alone about my phone." Well, we just got a new manager, partially because of our former manager's attitude towards safety issues, and partly because of poor performance. The new manager had a quick, to-the-point meeting at the beginning of our shift and stated very clearly, "If I see your phone, you're fired. No excuses, no exceptions." Bob missed this meeting because he was running late, again. About 2 hours later, I saw the new manager walking to our area. Bob, as usual, was head down, staring at his phone. Remember when he specifically said to leave him alone about his phone? Well, that's exactly what I did. Our new boss ended up standing behind him for a solid 3 minutes before Bob even noticed he was there. Bob was promptly escorted to Human Resources, and I was apologized to by the new manager because I'd have to run the work area alone until a replacement was found. No big loss. The extra 10% of work is well worth knowing that guy won't be around anymore. I guess no one at that job will bother him about his phone again. Story 6. I'm a trainee at my company in an industry that I haven't worked in before. I'm getting the hang of the job and the many, many things that are a part of it. I have to know pretty much where everything is and what is available at a moment's notice and be ready to alter planning straight away. The more I'm getting into it, the less time I have for other things. Still being a trainee, many people within the company who have established comfortable positions are taking advantage of me as the do-everything-I-can't-be-bothered-to-do guy. I'm also computer literate in a company filled with people who aren't tech-savvy, which also doesn't work in my favor. The other day, I was being asked about a few invoices for vehicle repairs that the person in accounts couldn't be bothered to even read properly. I thought for a second to put 2 and 2 together. After a few back and forth emails and phone calls, where I gave one-word answers due to not wanting my time to be wasted, the final straw was when they asked me which vehicle it was all for. I'm very meticulous when it comes to putting things like this into our system, so this information could not have been any clearer to someone who was actually bothered with doing their job and reading the orders and invoices. I calmed down and politely said that it was for vehicle's eyes and that it was in the order detail and on the invoice from the provider. I was berated and told, "You need to make sure that that is always in the order detail." It was. So today, I decided to jump the gun when I got an email from our provider asking for an order number. This isn't actually part of my job description, but the provider knows that if they ask me directly, they'll get it faster because I'm not lazy. I put together an order, and instead of my usual attention to detail, I decided to make this crystal clear to everyone who is going to be seeing this downstream. Now, in giant letters on the order detail is a big, ugly paragraph that says, "Vehicle's eyes. 1 coolant pipe for vehicle's eyes. The dump truck. That is vehicle's eyes. Vehicle's eyes is the registration of this dump truck. That is vehicle's eyes that is on the invoice. Vehicle's eyes." I received one amusing phone call from the provider asking about the weird paragraph, and I explained that there was some confusion over what vehicle the repairs were for last time. even though it is in giant letters on the invoice and order. This was followed by a salty email from accounts asking if I'm joking around. To which I replied, "Not at all. I just don't want there to be any more confusion between our orders and invoices. We are diligent professionals, after all." Story 7. This happened about 15 years ago, but I can't help snickering about it from time to time. In high school, I was a pretty mild-mannered kid. I came from a very strict household, and a call from the school was absolutely unacceptable. I also wanted approval from authority figures as I rarely got it at home, so I kept quiet, did good work, and was generally well liked by my teachers. As I mentioned, it was a strict household, and my outfits were closely inspected for modesty by my very conservative parents. If it passed at home, it wasn't going to get me in trouble. I tried hard to fit in with the other kids though, and found that wearing a layer underneath made regular outfits pass the home dress code. So I still got to wear the distressed jeans, but you could see black leggings instead of my knees. Not a huge deal, and it helped me feel better about my appearance, at least socially anyway. As trends were set, leggings became super popular. Finally, I was ahead and on point with my style. Some girls did begin to abuse the system, though. The school dress code required skirts to be no shorter than 3 inches 1 index card above the knee. Suddenly, the standard became lots of tiny denim mini skirts with leggings, so the school cracked down and said leggings were no longer allowed under skirts. Of course, since I had different home rules, I didn't even own a skirt that short. My skirts had to reach the knees, which was 3 inches longer than the school requirement. I didn't even mention the new school rule at home because I didn't think it was an issue. So I get super cute, wearing my knee-length denim skirt and leggings as it was still trendy and a bit chilly out, pass home inspection, and head off to school. Nothing was said in my first 3 classes, but like I said, I was a good kid and always well covered. One of the super mean teachers, not even mine, just one standing outside her door, spotted my skirt and leggings in the hall, grabbed me, and marched me down to the office. I knew of the rule change, but I truly thought it wouldn't be a big deal since I wasn't wearing a mini skirt. She shoved me in and yelled something about a dress code violation and left to return to her class. I was called in, thinking the principal, whom I didn't know well, would laugh with me about her unreasonableness. Boy, was I wrong. He yelled up and down about how I was dressed inappropriately and said he would be calling my parents to come get me to take me home to change. Oh no. As I stood and turned around showing him my clothes, I tried to argue that my skirt met the code and the leggings covered more. I even tried to explain that my parents would take it out on me in an aggressive manner. He wasn't going to hear any of it. I had to think fast. Cue malicious compliance. While he was still looking for the number to call, I kicked off my shoes and began wriggling the leggings down and off, right there in his office in front of him. Since my skirt was long enough, I shoved my pants in my bag and stated that now he had no reason to call my parents. I was fully compliant with the dress code of the school. As he stared with his mouth agape, I could see him turning red while trying to figure out how to deal with me. He ended up just yelling, "Get out of my office, get to class." Never have I felt so relieved. Story 8. I work as an administrative assistant at a major sporting goods retailer. Part of my job is to track attendance and regularly upload a report to corporate. My store manager was recently hired in the last 2 years by our district manager, with whom she has been friends for years. They managed to push out the old store manager who had the store running like clockwork. Ever since then, it has become abundantly clear that she has no idea how to run the store, and we have all suffered for it. She constantly messes up the store schedule, bullies employees she doesn't like, and has hired incompetent friends for management positions. We all dislike her and think she should be fired, but it seems like everything she does in the store makes us look bad while making her look good, until recently. As I mentioned above, part of my job is tracking attendance. Yet for years, it has been common knowledge that those in my position are expected to fail to upload attendance records to corporate, because the company's policies on attendance are extremely harsh, and many employees fail to meet attendance due to factors out of their control. For instance, employees who come in before we open to process our freight often clock in late, because the managers on duty take their time opening the front doors for these employees. It is not their fault that they come in late, On some occasions, certain employees have been left outside for upwards of 30 minutes after ringing our doorbell because the only person who could open the doors was busy or didn't hear the doorbell, which is soft. Anyway, if I were to upload the attendance record to corporate, many of these employees would probably be fired on the spot by our regional manager through email because these things are automated and mandatory. As a side note, the store manager is one of the managers who likes to take 10 or 15 minutes to open the door for freight employees. We all dislike her for this because when it is winter, we have to wait those 10 or 15 minutes outside the door in the freezing cold, and she acts like it is no big deal. Anyway, her district manager friend recently moved to another district, and we got a new district manager who is looking to move up in corporate. To do this, she has to make all of our metrics look awesome, including attendance. She sent an email to our store manager demanding an attendance record. I told the store manager that this could get many employees fired, but instead of realizing the implications, she told me to run the report anyway. I tried to tell her that this could result in most of the employees who had availability before we opened who are very valuable and rare getting fired, and she completely dismissed me. She went as far as saying that I was not thinking straight. I told her that she could adjust the attendance on her end, as the district manager clearly wanted her to do. This has been a common procedure due to the reasons for poor attendance. And she told me that she was the store manager, she would figure it out, and I should just do my job as I was told. So I ran the report and immediately got a furious email from the new district manager saying that I should have run the report by my store manager to adjust the records before uploading it to corporate. The next day, corporate sent an automated email with the names of all the employees that should be fired, which is not an email that our manager can either respond to or contest. She had to fire all the employees on the email. As it turned out, every single employee with availability before we opened got fired 15 people. And every other employee in the store is a student with no ability to work before 10 a.m., so there is nobody to process our freight, which is a massive job. I got an email from a friend in corporate yesterday that said the regional manager was lining up a replacement for our store manager due to incompetence. None of us are surprised.